good evening and welcome to this week's edition of the Pete Mezzetti Show. My guest this evening is Luke Frey from the Connecticut Better Business Bureau. Luke, welcome. How are you?
Hi, Pete. It's great to be here.
Nice to have you. Nice to have you. Thanks for coming down.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about yourself. I guess you're new with the Connecticut Better Business Bureau, and welcome.
Sure. Thank you. Yes, I'm kind of new with Better Business Bureau serving Connecticut. I've been there for a few months now, so I'm just kind of getting a grasp kind of on all the different topics and unfortunately all of the issues that Connecticut residents end up having or complaining about to Better Business Bureau. So,
now what are some of the complaints that you guys hear, especially as we're going into the fall season? What are some of the complaints that you guys hear about?
Sure. So we hear about complaints from all types of different businesses, on and off. It can change from contractors to online retailers, and recently we've actually had a lot of complaints about a job scam going around Connecticut.
Okay.
Which was a job scam where you got a call on your cell phone, and there was a voicemail left to you about Amazon hiring all of these jobs. It could pay anywhere from $20 an hour to $6,000 a month, which if you're unemployed, that sounds like a great salary to have. Not too long ago, I was unemployed and looking for a job. Right. And unfortunately, people who are trying to find work get a voicemail like this and are happy about it, excited about it, and sort of move forward with the so-called hiring process. So a few things happen in a scam like this. That they would end up mailing a check to whoever they hired, right, and they would ask them to buy certain, in-home products that they can use during their work time, and then end up wiring most of the rest of that check back to Amazon or whoever the hiring company was. And then it ends up being that check is actually not real. It is a fraudulent check, and then you've just wired a company or this hiring company claiming to be Amazon around $800 or more. So I'm going to talk about fraudulent checks a little bit later because that's a really huge issue that spans more than employment scams. But I do have a couple tips on how to prevent yourself from being job scammed. So Please. A couple things that you can look out for when applying to a job, or if it seems too good to be true, it most likely is. Right. And that's a tagline that BBB uses a lot, since unfortunately, a lot of great opportunities or things that seem a little bit too good to be true are, unfortunately. So any job that requests personal info or prepayment is usually a scam. So a real job usually will not ask you to prepay, should not ask you to pay for training, and will also not set up direct deposit prior to your first day of work. So that is usually an issue that people run into when being hired at a job. And then unfortunately, if it is a scam, they're asked to give all their banking info, routing and account numbers, and oh yeah, we just need all of this info so that we can end up paying you. Well, they're not really hiring you anyway, so they're actually taking your banking info. The other big tip is if you get an instant job offer. So if you apply to a job, they instantly offer it to you, and the so-called hiring manager is in communication with you and trying to get your banking info, get personal info right away. That's usually a bad sign. So if it is a legitimate job, usually a recruiter will reach out to you via email, get you onboarding. Usually there's some sort of onboarding process, and then you will have your first day set up at the actual establishment that you're being hired at as well.
Okay.
Also check the business's website. That's kind of a no-brainer, but sometimes people don't think about it.
Right, exactly.
So this unfortunate Amazon job scam, if you would check the Amazon website for their careers, you wouldn't necessarily see this job posted. So if you are applying to a job or get hired for a job and you're searching that actual company site and you're not seeing your job listed under there as open positions, that's usually a red flag as well. And if you have a couple concerns and you're like, well, maybe they wouldn't have it posted, I'm not sure, you can always call that company's HR department as well and ask about a job that you just got hired for in that company as well. And also search online. So one trend that I even saw when looking for jobs a couple years ago was if you see the same job posted in Portland, in Hartford, in New York, in Pittsburgh, and you see the same job over and over again, the same job posting, the same copy and paste, usually they're work from home jobs, they're administrative assistant jobs, they're customer service jobs that sort of appeal to a wide range of people, so that whenever they post all of these postings all across America and have all these people applying to them, it's open to a lot more people who could send all their info or unfortunately end up getting scammed.
Now, should we talk about the check scam?
Sure, yeah. So it kind of goes into the check scam as well. Better Business Bureau nationally did an international study on fraudulent checks, which I didn't realize, but they actually affect younger people more than older people. Do you believe that?
No.
I don't either. So here's my interpretation of it. So the study says that it affects consumers between the age of 20 to 29 more than older adults. And I believe that number is probably right. However, I believe that people ages 20 to 29 also are more likely to report a scam online, know of our online scam tracker, and also use the internet more. So they are more likely to claim that they have been scammed. The other part of that is people who are older end up losing more during a check scam. So unfortunately, if you're older, you're at less risk. However, you end up losing more if you are somehow found in a situation for a fraudulent check. So mostly how these scams work is you get a check in the mail. So you either were hired as a secret shopper, or it could even be a romance scam. Mm-hmm. I can talk about that next time I'm on. That's always a great subject.
Sure.
And you're mailed a check for any amount of money. It could be $800, it could be $2,000. And what ends up happening is the person who sends you that check is usually asking for you to buy a couple, small ticket items possibly, but then wiring most of the remainder of what they sent you back to their bank account. So the red flag there is wiring money is usually a high risk activity. So if you're wiring money, it's just like cash. You can't really retrieve it back. So say if you used a credit card online and you bought a product and it was fraudulent or it ended up not coming, usually you can work with your credit card company or that bank to retrieve money back. Whenever you wire money, it's like cash, so it's basically gone after you do that. So be very weary of anyone or any situation where you're mailed a check and then asked to wire funds back. And where that comes along is that check ends up being fraudulent and you're out those funds on top of what you had wired back to people. So hopefully that helps you get what a fraudulent check scam is, since I was kind of confused about them. Mm-hmm. And I was also confused about why it's affecting younger people as well, because I would think younger people don't really use checks, we don't really write checks, but where my thoughts come in there are younger people are always looking for work, an extra job, an extra income. So I think unfortunately it's hitting that younger generation in that job scam category, where these younger people between ages 20 to 29 are applying to these easy work from home jobs online and are unfortunately being scammed with that.
Wow.
Yeah. Lots of info, but
totally
it's always good to know. And a vast majority of people claim that they haven't been scammed if they know about what a scam is. So that's why I'm here. That's why BBB exists, because a large majority of my job is to educate people in Connecticut about what scams are going around. Since if you've heard about it, if you've heard about a fake check scam, if you've heard about a romance scam, if you've heard about a job scam, it opens up your eyes a little bit more to a situation you might find yourself in when applying to a job or any of these different situations.
And I was going to say, you and I were talking before we started taping tonight's program, but I guess there was a scam involving a local moving company.
Yes, a couple months ago, I think in August.
I believe so.
Yes, there was a company out of Guilford, Connecticut called Flagship Van Lines, and they were somewhat a national company. They had customers from all across the U.S., out west, here on the East Coast, and they were claiming to be headquartered in Guilford. So a lot of the complaints came to the Connecticut Better Business Bureau. And what ended up happening was a lot of people were hiring them to move them across country. It was a lot of big moves, I had realized, not so much short like, oh, I'm going to move down the street or move, to a different town. It was a lot of cross-country moves, so very expensive. And they were not showing up on time. They were quoting people at one price, and then they were jacking up the rates almost 2 or 3 times what they had quoted. And they were holding people's items hostage, basically, if they wouldn't pay that, inflated price that they magically came up with after they had quoted a certain price. So a lot of complaints were coming in. A lot of people, again, across the country were complaining about it. We were seeing it, and 12 people were actually indicted in Florida. It was also happening in Florida. So again, it was happening everywhere. And I believe they have been stopped so far. Last that we had heard, they changed their name to Blessed Movers. Okay. So they did change their name, and they may be trying to operate elsewhere. So that's why we're trying to educate people about them as well, in case they would come across some moving company by that name and would have those same issues.
Would you mind sticking around for another segment?
Sure, absolutely, if you'll have me.
We'll be right back.
All right.
Fast family life in need of a slowdown?
Hello, I'm Dr. Spruce. Did you know all those green shapes on maps are parks and forests? It's true. Visit discovertheforest.org and plan to visit a park or forest near you, instead of just wondering what it would have been like.
While the word forest might make you think of distant lands from far, far away, please note parks and forests are closer than you think, which means things like beautiful scenery, fresh air, and family time are also closer than you think.
Let me tell you about the toughest guy on earth.
He has the crazy strength to lift the man that raised him up without even flinching.
This guy, no, this warrior, will always be by his father's side, even if his dad will hardly remember. If this guy isn't the toughest guy on the planet, then I don't know who is. Caregiving is tougher than tough. Find the care guides you need at aarp.org/caregiving.
And welcome back to this week's edition of the Pete Mezzetti Show. Sitting here with Luke Frey from the Connecticut Better Business Bureau. Luke, welcome back.
Yes, thank you. It's
welcome.
Nice to be here.
Thanks for sticking around. So
Absolutely.
we were talking about during the break, I guess you have a couple stories you want to tell us when we're going to talk about small business owners?
Sure. So I was talking to a small group of small business owners last week, and small business scams were kind of on the top of my mind. And I just have a couple general tips that can be used for any small business owner. If you're a painter, if you're a contractor, if you have a business out of your home office, or really any consumer as well. We're all consumers. Even if you're a business owner, you are buying products. You're buying products for your business. So most of the time, small business scams aren't so much different than general scams that affect anybody. Right. So a couple points are wiring money. I already talked about that. Yeah. You should really know who you're wiring to. 2 is you really shouldn't send money to anybody you don't know. So it kind of goes along with wiring cash. If someone is sort of inflicting urgency on a situation, if you think you're being scammed, a lot of scams inflict, this has to happen now. You have to pay me now. So it's just one of those general things that you should look out for when you're paying or sending anyone large amounts of money. Also, depositing checks. We talked about fraudulent checks. Make sure you know who is sending you a check. If you get a random check in the mail and you're like, hey, I'm going to try to deposit this and see if it's worth anything, that's usually not a good idea. And also check your bank statements. If you have a small business, you might have someone paying your invoices, or you might pay them yourself. So it's always smart to check your bank statements, make sure what money is going out should be going out, and what is coming in should be coming in. And it goes for any consumer as well. I know millennials are sometimes bad at keeping a checkbook and keeping how much should be in their checking accounts, and they're like, oh, what's all online? I just know all the time. Well, some charges might come through that you don't end up seeing for small amounts, every couple days, maybe once a month, and you're just not catching it. So it's really good to go through and look through that bank statement at least once a month, making sure all of those monthly bills are what you should actually be paying. I have one cool, unfortunate story for a small business scam. One tip we always tell business owners is to train your employees. So it's usually not enough for just an owner to be smart and think proactively and know about scams and be prepared for that. It's always important to train your employees as well, since, like I said, sometimes you can have other people paying your bills, checking your invoices, and you might not be seeing everything that's going out your door. So it's really important to train your employees. Where the story comes in is a Qdoba worker in Kentucky was actually called. She was a manager, I believe, at the Qdoba store, and she was called by scammers saying, your store owes $1,000 to our franchise fee. And she was only a manager. She didn't own that branch of Qdoba. And again, sense of urgency. It has to happen now. You have to pay it now. I'm sure it was probably in the evening. What franchise is going to call your employees, asking for $1,000 offhand? So it's kind of, you have to be like, okay, why does it have to happen now? So they told her to take $1,000 out of the cash register, meet her at a local store, and pay them. And I'm sure they were saying, oh, your owner's going to be so angry if you don't do this, or your store is going to be shut down if you don't, bring us our $1,000. And fortunately, the other employees, after they saw her leave, called the authorities, and she was stopped prior to handing over the $1,000 to who knows. But even if you're an employee at a business, it's always great to hear stories like this so that you can kind of learn from situations people have found themselves in, so that you're not victim to a scam like this. And it's always important to call your manager, call the owner of your business if something seems not right, if someone's asking for personal info or money from your business that you work for. It's always important to call your manager or call the owner, so that you verify that you're supposed to be taking that $1,000 out of the cash register. So, yeah.
Wow.
Lots of great tips, right?
Well, let's keep going with great tips.
Sure.
We got some more time.
Okay. So in general, talking about fraudulent checks, I just want to go back to that for a second as well. Fraudulent check scams are usually seen to be from Nigerian gangs. So a lot of these fraudulent check scams we're seeing are obviously from overseas. And they also touch into those romance scams as well I talked about. People asking for wire transfers, people mailing a check to help out a loved one and then asking for it back. It can also happen to people who request you to send them money to come over from a country if it's a romance scam. And also with small businesses, where the fraudulent check scam comes in, is people claim they've overpaid. So they'll claim they've overpaid you. Oh, can you wire me an extra $100? I overpaid your business. You do it, and then you're out the $100, and the original check they wrote you is also a scam as well. So it's just, you really have to be careful, but in an overall scheme of things, it's usually best to use your common sense. You know, if it's a situation that you don't feel 100% comfortable in, or if you feel like someone is trying to get you to do something, again, sense of urgency has to happen now. And unfortunately, sometimes scammers can also pretend to be a person you trust. We've heard of, you know, people being scammed and it looks like an email from your aunt, or it looks like an email from your employer asking for, you know, personal info. It could look like a call from your home number or your hometown. So a lot of things branch out into scammers either trying to gain your trust or trying to make you do something because they said so, which is terrible.
It is.
So.
It is.
Scammers also can use intimidation and fear as well, so kind of on top of that sense of urgency. If you're scared, if you're in a situation, I'm sure that worker was, where she was scared, she was not sure what she should do, it's always best to, you know, either call someone, call your employer if it's an employment scam, call that company, or call your manager or boss or any of those types of people as well.
Now, speaking of scams and other stuff, does the Do Not Call list still exist?
A do not call list?
Yeah.
I've been asked that one other time. I'm sure there are other third-party do not call lists. Better Business Bureau does not operate a do not call list.
Gotcha.
We do take complaints though, and we do have a scam tracker online too as well. I don't know if you've heard of that. So if you fall into any type of scam, if you have a question, you can always call us, but we do have something called Scam Tracker. So it's bbb.org/scam tracker. You can put in what happened, how much you lost, so that other people can see that and see if it's happening in your area. It's also great for BBB as a company. We see trends. So if we see a trend happening in Guilford, or if we see a trend happening in Old Saybrook, we will look into that. So if people are vastly unhappy or getting scammed in a certain area, that kind of puts our sights on that area, and our investigators, you know, check out what's happening and see what we can do to either educate consumers or stop that scam from happening as well.
You guys are pretty busy at the BBB.
We are very busy.
What else is going on?
A lot is going on. Football season's coming up as well.
Yeah.
So a lot of people are headed to NFL games. They're headed to college games. And unfortunately, sometimes we see some scams happening with football season as well.
Absolutely.
So a couple tips we have for that is if you're buying merchandise, if you're buying a jersey. I'm an Eagles fan, so I was kind of checking out some Super Bowl jerseys from last year. I know it's probably Patriots, Giants area here.
Exactly.
But if you're trying to buy that jersey, make sure you're buying legitimate merchandise. You're using your team site, or if it's NFL, you're using NFL Shop. If you're not, and you're using other sites, and you get a jersey or a t-shirt or any form of merchandise, usually it will have a hologram on it. I know NCAA does that as well with college and all of that kind of stuff. Ordering tickets, make sure you're using those ticket sites either directly through venues or, again, NFL Ticket Exchange. I believe Ticketmaster may have NFL tickets as well now. So, and always check those policies as well. So check those return policies. Make sure you, if you're like, I'm not sure if I can go to the game, but I'm going to buy these tickets anyway, make sure you can exchange them or return them if you can't go.
Right.
Also, a tip we have, it just slipped my mind. I talked about tickets, merchandise. What's one other thing with football games? I'm trying to think. Last one escaped me. Oh, wow.
Well.
It's all right. But yeah, I mean, it's a great time of year. People enjoy going to games.
It is.
And, I found it. Don't post a picture of your tickets online. So a lot of people order tickets
Right.
and they post them on Instagram or they're posting them online and they're so excited they're going to their first NFL game or their first college game. It's really important to not post a picture of that actual ticket.
Right.
Scammers can use an image and create fraudulent tickets off of your ticket.
Right.
So if you go to your game, the scammer's ticket could have been scanned prior to yours. So you might not be able to get into the game even though you have the legitimate ticket in
Right.
your hand. So it's always a smart idea to keep those barcodes, keep all those numbers off of Facebook, Instagram, all of those social sites as well.
Speaking of social sites and social media, what kind of information can people find on the Better Business Bureau of Connecticut site?
Yes, so we're at bbb.org/CT.
Okay.
You can find that scam tracker on there. You can also search any Connecticut business or any business across the country on there as well. Read any complaints, reviews they have. We also have Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. We're usually under BBB Serving CT or BBB CT on all of those social sites so that you can keep up with a couple reminders we'll have. We just had back to school. Tips as well, so it's just constantly great info that you can read and kind of check out quickly so that you're not scammed through any time of year, really.
I was going to say, and you guys probably update your social media and your website fairly regularly?
Yes, yeah, very often. Our scam tracker is real time, our complaints are real time as well, so after a complaint is submitted to our site, usually it's posted within a couple weeks of being typed in. So people can really see what's happening in their area, if any scams are happening, pretty quickly.
Luke Frey from the Connecticut Better Business Bureau, thanks for coming down. We'll see you soon.
All right, thank you, Pete, for having me on.
On behalf of Luke Frey, I'm Pete Mezzetti. Thanks, good night, and we'll see you next time.